There's a lot going on right now dealing with politics, elections, and AI. So that's the focus here, is that we're going to be talking about AI deepfakes and how that relates to politics in general and the elections specifically. It's important to realize that out of the 195 countries that there are in the world, 73 of them will be having high-level elections in the year 2024. The United Nations has stated that this is the biggest election year in human history. So yeah, this is a massive event this year. There's so much going on as far as democracy with so many different elections. Here's a listing of all the elections that still have to happen this year. You can see there's over 20 different countries that have to have elections still. And the United States, of course, is a big player in that we're going to have ours on the 5th of November. So that's coming up very soon. So that's why I thought it was very important for me to highlight some of these different aspects of deepfakes and politics. Now, within this video, I'm going to demonstrate a couple of different things because I'm going to show 3 different examples of some gray area associated with deepfakes. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here, and let's go through and discuss deepfakes in general. First, we have to ask ourselves, well, what is a deepfake? There's lots of different definitions out there as far as what constitutes an actual deepfake, but I very much like the definition that comes to us simply from Merriam-Webster. An image or recording that has been convincingly altered and manipulated to misrepresent someone as doing or saying something that was not actually done or said. So that's a great overall definition, and I think it really captures a lot of this, right? The thing is, though, although that's an official definition from Webster, it's being used a lot more in different ways. Anything that's fake is sometimes simply dubbed as a deep fake, right? So, and this goes for video, for audio, for text. It just starts to refer to it as, oh yeah, that was deep fake. That was made by an AI. That's all made up. It's a deep fake. So that's one aspect of that. Now I'm going to show you an example. This is pretty much a clear-cut example of a deep fake, just to make sure that we're all on the same sheet of music when we talk about deep fake. This example comes to us from the country of Armenia. So here we have a deepfake that was made of the prime minister. The prime minister here, and I'll show you a little clip of it, he's going to be speaking in Russian, talking about a cryptocurrency idea to make money, and if you sign up, then you'll get some cryptocurrency from the country itself. And here's a quick sample from that video. And again, this is a deepfake video.
В сотрудничестве с гением инноваций Марком Цукербергом мы представляем вам уникальную инвестиционную платформу Libra.
So now some of you might be saying, oh yeah, you can tell because of maybe some mouth movements or maybe the way that he's moving his body or the actual audio that might not be quite right. But the problem is that this was from last year, right? This is from last year, and a lot of people fell victim to this. The country of Armenia lost $500,000 because so many people thought that this was a real thing. So this is a clear-cut example. So this is illegal. Someone took his image, right, a video of him. Someone took audio, put it together with that, and had him expressing this that was completely false, completely untrue, and scammed a lot of people out of money. So that's a clear-cut example of a deep fake. And in the past, this would take quite a while, but now it can be done very easily, very quickly with simple and even free tools. Now, this is a clear-cut example, but using AI, deepfake technology in this way isn't the only aspect of how to use this technology. There are some great uses of it. Hollywood is starting to use deepfake technology more and more. Here's an example of 4 different movies where they use some aspect of deepfake technology either to change someone's age, make them younger, make them older, or to finish a movie. Sadly, there's a couple instances here, a couple of movie examples where someone died in the filming of the movie, so they were able to use deepfake technology to finish the movie by placing that actor's image on another actor. So again, some interesting and useful implementations of deepfake technology. But what I want to talk about here is using deepfakes in politics, in elections, and how there's gray area that exists. There's gray area that exists that we really need to be thinking about. This is important stuff to be discussing in the classroom to help develop AI literacy in general, but also to really get our students to critically think, to critically analyze these situations and think about this gray area. Think about the ethics that are associated with this. Is this right? Is this wrong? Is this legal? Is this not? So I'm going to show you some different examples, and I want you to think, is this okay? I don't know, or completely wrong, right? So again, 3 different options. I'll give you my my answers to it at the very end, but I'm going to show you the example, and then you make your decision, and then we'll bring it all together here in the end. So the first example comes to us from New York Mayor Eric Adams. So he used an AI clone of his voice. Now, he specifically did this. He cloned his voice so that it could be changed as far as it expressing what he's saying, but in multiple languages. So this was done for his public service announcement. This was done so that all New Yorkers could be informed about things going on. The thing is that when these robocalls were made to inform citizens, there was no statement that the voice was AI generated or that it was altered in any way. There was no statement that Mayor Adams could not speak those specific languages. So again, we have to think, is this morally right? Is this unethical? Is this illegal? I'm going to show you a quick clip of a news agency and what they've stated about this.
Hola, soy el alcalde Eric Adams.
Last year, Adams announced 11 labs used AI to produce public service announcements that made it sound like the mayor could speak Spanish, Hebrew, Mandarin, and Haitian. For 2 months, the AI team has been asking to hear all of the recordings. After all, they were paid for using public money, but the mayor still has not shared them. He has only released the Spanish version.
Estamos felices de elevar nuestra...
The city's government is not being transparent enough about what it's doing with AI.
Okay, so that was one example dealing with the mayor, right? So keep that in mind as far as, is this okay? I don't know, or completely wrong. Now, that's one example. That's one implementation of an AI using cloned voice. And you can see the gray area that it's starting to hit. We have to think about the ramifications, the second and third order effects. What are the citizens going to think? Yeah, sure, they're going to be happy because they're getting information in their specific language, but by not telling them that this is an AI, is that deception? Is that deceiving them? Is that allowing them to think certain things like, oh, I didn't know that the mayor spoke in my language. Wow, that's excellent that he was able to learn that. I feel much closer to him. Again, that deception that someone is allowed to fill in the blanks when we don't give all of the information. So again, this is something to think about. Let's go to another example. In this example, President Biden's voice was used during a robocall and automatic phone calls to citizens to tell them not to vote in primary elections. So this was not authorized by the president. This was not authorized by the White House, the government. There was no warning or indication given that this was made with AI. Now, there was no actual statement that this was President Biden, so that's kind of the legal loophole here, right? But anyone listening to this will clearly think that it was the president. So here's a sample from that.
Voting this Tuesday only enables the Republicans in their quest to elect.
When a deepfake robocall tried to trick New Hampshire voters into believing this was President Biden,
What a bunch of malarkey.
the sham was quickly uncovered, but we still don't know who was behind the dirty trick. A deepfake detection company called Pindrop said it's 99% sure someone used artificial intelligence platform 11 Labs to clone the president's voice.
So now we have to think and ask ourselves, okay, is this allowable? Is this a gray area? Is this unethical? Because certainly a lot of people could be deceived by this, right? They could think that, oh, this is the president telling me to do this, or the president is making this type of suggestion because it sounds exactly like the president, because it's a cloned voice. So something else to really consider and really contemplate. And this would be a great thing to ask students, right? What do they think? Is this right? Is this wrong? One more example. In this example, it's a parody of Vice President Kamala Harris' presidential campaign ad. So again, this is a parody. It's a comical depiction. It's using an AI cloned voice of Vice President Harris. This was originally posted on Twitter, and when it was originally posted, there was a statement saying that this was a satirical parody. Here's a sample from that video.
I, Kamala Harris, am your Democrat candidate for president because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility at the debate. Thanks, Joe. I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist.
The thing to think about here is that originally when it was posted, yes, there was a statement saying that this is satirical, this is a parody, right? So that quote unquote covers it, right? But the thing is that it was repeatedly shared, it was downloaded and re-uploaded, it was spread across social media, most of the time without the tag there that this was a parody, that this was not real. So a lot of people believe that, hey, this was a real campaign ad. So the thing is that now we have to think about how this is going to influence people, how this is going to possibly change their mind, possibly affect what they decide during an election. So this is an important thing to really consider as far as what's right and what's wrong. Okay, so here are the three situations, the three scenarios. On the very first one, where we're talking about the mayor, New York Mayor Eric Adams, and he used an AI to clone his voice. Well, that's perfectly legal. You can totally do that to clone your own voice, to change it so that it speaks in many different languages. I think there is an ethical aspect to him not stating that this was AI, to letting his citizens think that he could speak those languages, because he's never come out and fully denied it. He allows people to think that. He allows people to assume that, yeah, he spent the time, well, the dedicated to go in and actually learn that language. And there's a lot of languages. I don't think that that's properly ethical. I think there should have been a statement there talking about how, hey, AI was used as a tool to help enhance my message so that all of you could receive this information in your own language. Again, that's still making you look good that you're using new technology to enhance the communication aspect. I don't think it belittles anything by saying that you use this AI tool, but I do think it is somewhat deceptive to use that tool in this way without letting people know, at least in some way. So that's my opinion for there. If you disagree with that, I'd love to hear in the comments what your thoughts are and whether that's morally right or wrong. Now, this next one, talking about President Biden's voice, right? So someone cloned his voice and used it. The thing is that you could make an argument that, well, maybe they didn't clone his voice. Maybe it was just um, using someone that sounds like him or using specific words that he uses all the time, but it's not, he doesn't own those words. I think that's a pretty weak argument because the evidence suggests that yes, it was cloned, so it was definitely the president's voice, and it was used without his permission, and it was used in such a way that could be very deceptive to people and could definitely influence what they do. They might have not voted in the primary. Thankfully, this was caught pretty early on, but I think this should definitely be something that would qualify as being unethical. The purposeful deception is one of those things that I think really makes this a clear case. Again, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Sure, there's an argument for this because I don't believe that this was actually counted as illegal. 11 Labs was used for this, but they're not the ones that implemented this. Someone else went through that process, and I don't think charges are there because the laws haven't caught up yet with the technology. So although this wasn't illegal, I still think this was wrong. So share your comments and we can have a discussion about that. Okay, so for the final one, this one is a very interesting one, right? Because the idea here is that this was a parody. And the thing about parodies is that it's protected. It's protected in law. There's been other cases where it's gone all the way to the Supreme Court. And then guess what? Parody holds up because we are allowed to have freedom of expression. This is counted as that because we're expressing a viewpoint in a satirical manner. It's a parody that's covered under law. Now, even though I totally agree with that, I do think that there is some ethical aspects here because although it was stated as parody when it was initially put up there, people sharing it, people downloading it and re-uploading it, they're not going to make those statements. They're not going to put that up there. The first time I heard this, I actually thought it was real. And I was like, I can't believe that they would put this out. But then I went through it again and I looked at the sources and I saw the origination. And then I realized that, yeah, this was totally, totally fake. It was a parody, right? The thing is that although this is covered legally, I do think that we should, on an ethical level, start to look at the guidance and the laws associated with this. When we initially created these laws dealing with parody, there was no AI. There was no ability to 100% clone someone's voice, to 100% clone their image, to make it look like they're doing something that they're not. That technology didn't exist when these laws were initially created. So that's why I think it's important for us to sit down and investigate this again. I'm all for keeping freedom of speech, don't get me wrong, and I think parodies are important, but the realism aspect can really affect people, can really influence their thoughts. There's been research that shows that, hey, if you're exposed to deep fakes, to fake images, fake audio, that it's going to affect you, even on a subconscious level. So that's something important to think about. Additionally, with all of these, if a deep fake is made, it gets spread over social media much, much faster than the truth. There was a MIT research study that looked into that, and yeah, they found that, yeah, if it's something that's a deep fake, that's untruthful, it gets spread much, much faster. Huge increase in rates as far as it being shared much more than actual truthful information. So that's why I think it's important for us to at least look again at these laws, look again at the regulations to see where there needs to be some more protections in place. So that leads us to what can be done to help address this issue. If we know that this can affect society, if we know that this can totally affect someone's decision and could change the outcome of an election, then what can we do in order to help address this situation? Because this is a very important, pressing issue. There are three big things. One is, as we talked about, regulations. Are there even regulations in place for some of these different aspects? So we need to look at the laws. We need to consider different labeling policies. I know that there's some work on some social media platforms to try and address this, to try and do some sort of labeling. It's very difficult because there's so much usage, but YouTube now is starting to ask these type of questions. So there's some movement in that. So we need to really think about different ways to label, different laws, different regulations, so that we can at least start to address this on one level. But that's not the only way to address this. That's not the only thing that we must do in order to really ensure that people aren't being deceived. The next one is education. So education is a vital aspect here. We need to consider that education is important for everyone, right? Young and old. And then the final one is exposure. We need to expose people to this to build awareness. So let me give you some examples here of education and exposure. So with education, we need to have actual classes that are done for people that are young, people that are old, people that live in cities, people that live in rural areas. Everyone needs to develop some sort of AI literacy. So they need to go through, they need to learn about these things. They need education dealing with AI literacy in general and deepfakes specifically. So what does that mean? That means that there should be presentations, classes, courses that should be integrated into school, both at the lower levels and in higher education. But also this needs to be taught to everyone else. The elderly, there needs to be presentations, physical presentations in senior centers, online courses, online presentations, so that people get this information so that they can develop AI literacy and develop critical thinking. Additionally, in a past video, I talked about the trap test. So this is specific things, specific ways of understanding technology now in order to ensure that we don't get deceived. So within that trap test, the very first one is thinking critically, because now we have to have this mindset that, hey, if it's something that's digital out there in any way, whether that's text, image, audio, video, if it's digital, then an AI could have made it. It could be synthetic information, it could be a deep fake. So we need to be thinking that way now and going, okay, well, let me check the sources of information. Let me make sure that it's realistic, it's reliable, it's accurate, there's proper authority behind it. It's what is the purpose? Is this just propaganda? So at least looking through and verifying the source, seeing if there's multiple sources, seeing if this is being reported, so that we don't get deceived, right? So that we don't get scammed like has happened in the past, to ensure that it doesn't deceive us to such an extent that it makes us vote for someone that we don't want to vote for, that it makes us do an action or elect officials or think in a certain way, vote for certain laws that we wouldn't have if we hadn't been deceived. So that's why it's really important for this educational process to ensure that everyone at all levels gets this type of information, gets this type of education. Similarly, it's important for us to have exposure. That means that we need to expose citizens, young and old, everyone, to the idea that, yeah, this is possible. People need to see that this can be done, and that way it raises this awareness, it raises their understanding of what is going on out there. An example of this comes to us from Taiwan. in that there they created a campaign in order to expose its citizens to the realities of deepfake. So here's a quick little example.
DeepFake stands for deep learning and fake, which means faking content utilizing AI techniques, such as machine learning, specifically GAN algorithms.
Hold on. Is that really Audrey Tang? Let's watch the video again. Is the on-screen Audrey the same Audrey we know?
And this was done by the government, posted on social media, as well as some other places to help the common person understand. And that's the big thing, right? Everyone needs to be exposed. Everyone needs this education, not just us in higher education, not just people coming through the educational system right now, but everyone. So that's why it's important that we have multiple means to distribute this information, to educate people so that they can be aware that deepfakes are even out there, and then how to overcome some of this, as well as to minimize exposure, as well as simply to take ownership, right? And not to spread false information. Because if we see something, we hear something, we watch something, and yeah, that perfectly aligns with what we think, well, we shouldn't instantly share. We should take a step back, review the information. What is the source of the information? Is this correct? Is this truthful? And then make a decision as to how we want to distribute that. Because the big part about this is that it's everybody's responsibility to not continually share and distribute false information. So this was done in order to show you what's going on out there and to really help everyone start to critically think, because there's lots of gray areas here. Yes, there's some clear wrong ways that deepfakes are out there giving false information, but there's lots of middle ground. There's lots of gray areas that we really need to think about as a society so that we can address it, so that we can make a purposeful decision as to whether we want to allow something like that, or at the very least, how we want to label, how we want to go forward with regulations and laws to help ensure that people are truthful and that we are using and having the correct information in order to make our decisions for elections, for laws, for anything associated with politics. Okay, I hope that helped everyone to understand. Here are some quick references just to ensure that I'm giving you truthful information, which is what we should always be looking for. So if you like this, please like and share so that everyone gets exposure to this so that we can continue to develop our community of practice. And I really look forward to seeing what you think about this in the comments. All right, thank you everyone. And remember, learning is for life.